Welcome on into WagerTalk Extra. It's another week here. I'm your host, Dan Alexander, and it might be a little bit lighter of a week than typically here on WTE because no UFC event this weekend, but we will have some combat sports for you later in the week so we can constantly remind you that no matter what you're cashing on, that money all spends the same. And joining me today to talk a little PGA is the man whose betting profile is the embodiment of no matter what you're cashing on, it spends the same. Fresh off of a 5% cash on Maryland women's basketball, he reminds you that you don't even have to watch the games to cash right alongside Andy Lang. We'll get to just this insane run that if you even just had a short 3-day pass with Andy Lang, your pockets are runneth over. We'll talk about that in just a little minute because I want to get right into it. We love leading right into the week with some players that can trip you up in PGA action this weekend. These are players that you probably don't want to throw into a parlay to advance. Maybe you don't want to throw in a DFS lineup because Andy thinks they may struggle out on the links. Andy, who are we eyeing this week, brother?
We're going right to the top of the leaderboard, and we're going to take the two best favorites, and we're going to fade both of them, and we'll get into why when we go over the course description. So we'll start with Terrell Hatton. Man, what a bummer from Terrell Hatton. He was terrible in the match play, and it turns out he had a wrist injury. So here's what you have to know about this tournament. It's right before the Masters. And so some of the guys that are playing are locked into the Masters and they are completely looking ahead to the Masters. Well, Terrell Hatton is one of them, and he has had a fantastic year. But he showed up to the match play. He had something with his wrist, and he was 0-3. He was absolutely terrible. I don't know why he's playing this week, Dan. He has never played this tournament, but he's going to play it this week right before the Masters. My best guess is he needs to try the wrist out and see how it's going to go. Maybe get a few reps in and see if he can make it to Augusta. I just can't think of a less motivated guy in the field than Hatton. You know, he's having a great year. He's locked into the Masters. I mean, he's chasing major championships at this point in his career. I don't know why he's playing it. The only reason I can think is to test out the wrist. But this could be the least motivated golfer in the field, and he's the highest price golfer. Yeah, no way I'm taking Terrell Hatton. We'll move on to the next player that can trip you up. Let's see if this sounds familiar, Dan. High price golfer with no motivation because they're locked into the Masters. Sound familiar? Sound familiar? Well, hello, Mr. Hideki Matsuyama. This is a former champ of the Masters, and one of our best calls last year was Hideki played in this tournament, and we were like, why is Hideki Matsuyama playing in the tournament the week before the Masters when he's the defending champ? Like, doesn't he have a bunch of media to do and get ready for? And so what did he came out in the first round, played terrible, and then withdrew. Cashed all of our bets fading Hideki Matsuyama in the first round because he just withdrew. I don't understand why that is going to change. He has a neck injury. He couldn't even make his third round in the match play. So and what's curious about that is if he would have played and beat Max Homa in the third round, he sends that group to a playoff. So he stopped in the middle of match play because of a neck injury. And now we got the Masters next week again. I don't know why he is playing in this tournament, but he's the second highest betting favorite. He's only played here twice. He finished 30th and then he withdrew. Investing in him, bad idea. So Terrell Hatton, Hideki Matsuyama, you want nothing to do with these guys. I don't even know if either of them sees the weekend.
Fade the favorites. Some bold takes out of the gate from my man, Andy Lang. And you mentioned there we're talking Valero Texas Open, kind of a precursor to one of the biggest events of the year. So what can we expect kind of this weekend? And what do you expect maybe from greens, course layout? How are you going to be betting heading into this weekend?
The course layout is it has two biggest defense mechanisms, which are the wind and the rough. If you are wayward with your tee shots, you can put yourself in some bad positions with the rough. But the wind is going to be the biggest thing because it's down in Texas and the players are getting a break. It does not look like it's going to be that windy. Looks like the windiest time may be Thursday afternoon, but it doesn't even look like over 15 miles an hour. I don't even worry about the wind unless it's up to 20 miles an hour. So I would expect some pretty decent scores. I think somebody gets to minus 17 or minus 18. It's a bad field, but you've got some players that are really motivated because whoever wins this tournament, if they don't have a spot at the Masters, they get in. So you can find some guys that have a chance to make it into the tournament. And I will tell you, one, Ricky Fowler is a guy I'm keeping my eye on. He hasn't played the Masters since 2020. Trust me, the fans and the other players want this guy to play next week at the Masters. He's got a legit shot to win. He's going to be one of the best players, especially since the two betting favorites are out. But motivation is huge this week. The guys that do not have an automatic invite to the Masters are going to be fighting. You're going to see them taking a lot more chances. The guys that are locked into the Masters probably going to go out there and just get ready for next week. There was a legendary Phil Mickelson story about one year he played the week before the Masters, and all he did was hit shots that set up for Augusta. Like, it didn't even matter if the hole was a dog leg to the right. He was hitting dog legs to the left because that's what the Masters is set up. Like, he just like totally went out and shot like a plus 10 and waltzed, missed the cut and waltzed into Augusta because he got his like because he got his practice in. That's what a lot of these guys use this tournament for. So do not invest heavily in this tournament. I think there's a lot of landmines. I will not have very many bets in this tournament. One, maybe.
Yeah, and a lot of people are just looking forward to the Chili's menu that will be the Masters meal. I saw Scheffler getting a lot of like flack for what he chose, but I was like, man, like loaded potato skins or whatever he was throwing in there. Like, I am so down for the 2 for $20 special that is the Masters meal this year. Hey, Andy, before we talk about your DraftKings Darlings that you have queued up for the folks, let's just take a little bit of a macro view since we only have you on the show here today. We have a little bit longer of time of maybe just what, since WagerTalk Extra started, what you've been learning from PGA, because we're starting to get more sample size. So maybe what you learned thus far about how this season is rolling out, and maybe how that's going to impact how you're betting week by week, match by match as we move forward throughout the season.
Well, don't forget, I think the greatest single dish that was ever served at a Masters dinner was by Hideki Matsuyama. Japanese strawberry shortcake was the dessert. Oh
Not
my
wrong.
God, did it look
Not
amazing?
wrong.
So, yeah.
Not wrong.
Yeah, so here's what I've learned over the first part of the year. This year is different from years past. They have what's called elevated tournaments, and this is, make no mistake, this is because of what Live Golf forced them to do. They have elevated some of these tournaments that have much more prize money than the other tournaments. So you're getting these tournaments with all of the big name golfers. And then you're getting some tournaments like this one that has it's a bad field, just a lot of golfers that will never sniff the top 20. I've looked at my record. Where I'm doing great is on the elevated tournaments. The weeks I lose are on events like this, where you have a lot of unknown guys that kind of have surprise performances. Because let's face it, when you have these elevated events, a lot of these guys know they have no shot to win. When you've got Scheffler, Rahm, Rory, Schauffele, Justin Tom, all these big name guys. But an event like this, a lot of guys look at it and say, "Oh, I got a chance to win." So I will be lowering my volume on events like this, and I will be increasing my volume on the elevated events. Perfect example, Dan, last week, match play. It's all the big name guys. I knew I was going to have a good week. What happened? We went 13-6 for 13 and a half units. Huge golf week. So on tournaments like this, if you're a long-term subscriber, don't be surprised if I do not have a lot of plays. But for events like next week, Masters, expect to increase the volume because looking at the numbers, that's what's been working for us. So I'm looking forward to finish out the golf year really, really strong now that we know that.
Yeah, and that's Andy Lang. And you mentioned, Live Golf kind of shaking things up. Well, I almost forget that Live Golf is a thing because it runs concurrently usually against World's Funniest Animals and loses in the ratings to a clip show from images that you've probably seen in your Instagram timeline. Anyways, but hey, who can blame them? Those animals are pretty damn funny. All right, Andy, let's get into some DraftKings Darlings here, brother. You got 3 different players that you're eyeing to round out, folks, is daily fantasy lineups. Who are you looking for in Valero Texas Open action?
Well, again, not a pretty lineup here. I've had success going with stars and scrubs. Not this week. I'm going to go kind of middle of the road here. So I'll start with Byung Hoon An at 7,400. This is a golfer that does not have an invite to Augusta, so he's going to be motivated to win, and he's capable of it. He had a withdrawal about a month ago, but other than that, he's made the cut in the 7 other tournaments he's played in. 7,400. You're pretty much guaranteed points on the weekend from on, and he's going to take some chances and hopefully go for the win if he's near the top. Next, Nikolai Hogard at 8,000. Our good friend Borman just missed an outright win on him last week at the Punta Cana Corrales tournament. He's been really good on the European tour. A lot of casual golf fans don't know who this guy is. But in this watered down field, he's one of the better golfers, and he's not priced like it at 8,000. He finished runner up last week. He's finished top 20 in 3 out of his 5 European events that he's played in this year. So sometimes we get really good value on these names that most people don't know. So he's a really good look. And then Adam Schenk, one of the most unfortunate names in golf, Schenk. He's at 8,200. He has not played well here in the past, but this year he's been really good. Only 2 missed cuts in 10 tournaments this season. His last tournament that he played in was 2 weeks ago. He finished runner-up. He's got nice little momentum. That runner-up has got to give him a ton of confidence. So look for Adam Schenk to really make a run at trying to get the win. So again, we're looking at these guys that have all the motivation in the world to try and get a win so they can sneak into the Masters. That's what my DraftKings lineup is going to look like.
And you can get a full write-up over at Andy Lang's page of who is he eyeing for his full fantasy lineup. And you can get that for free at his page. And man, if you haven't been at Andy Lang's page getting the stuff that isn't for free, you're missing out. Because, Andy, I won't steal any of your thunder. I will just say the last few days and even just a 3-run stretch, what you have been able to drop here on Wager Talk is something of legend. You know, everybody's talking about this college basketball run my man Trigger had, which was absolutely incredible. But how many units has it been over the weekend? Because it blows my mind.
Yeah, it's kind of one of those where it's kind of hard to believe. Last 7 days we are up over 81 units. You heard that right. and there's no outrights. Like, it's not like we hit a huge outright. This is just, 3, 4, and 5% plays. We're up over 70 units in the last 3 days. And I can't say it's just me. As you know, Dan, we have an incredible team. Corbin's, kicking ass with Senate tennis and soccer. You've done a fantastic job with lacrosse. Steve has knocked it out of the park in NBA and NHL props. And then our other Dan, my God, closes out a legendary women's basketball season with a 5% winner. That puts him and us at plus 113 units just for the women's college basketball season. So we're down to the finals, so we probably won't have a play in that. We close that out, but been a magical run. So what we're going to do is lower the volume just a little bit here over the next few days because we know regression is probably going to happen. But for right now, we're riding the wave of momentum.
Yeah, just insane stuff that you and your team have been able to put together, and much like the comedy troupe who put together Superbad, like Andy is just the face. He's the Seth Rogen of the operation, and he has just as good of a laugh as Seth Rogen does, for what it's worth. All right, Andy, we made the folks wait long enough for a little free play, and if you were paying attention earlier, you just might know who Andy is looking to fade here right out of the gate. Who are we eyeing for a miss the cut special here to end the show?
Well, last year we nailed it with Hideki Matsuyama, and we'll do it with Terrell Hatton to miss the cut at plus 350. Once again, he has a wrist issue that really, really looked bad with how he played at the match play. This is a guy that was a top 10 machine on the PGA Tour, and he goes 0 for 3 at match play. That is a tournament that he loves. So gigantic red flag there. He's never played here. There's another gigantic red flag. I'm not sure why he's playing this event. And then the last red flag is he's locked in next week. So I don't see any motivation for him to care about this tournament. If his wrist starts acting up, I could see him withdrawing, just like Matsuyama did last year. And if he does not get off to a good start, in fact, if he gets off to a bad start, look out, because this is a guy who is famous for throwing temper tantrums on the golf course. He wears his emotions on his sleeve. If things are not going well, it is blow up central. So plus 350 Terrell Hatton, that is absolutely worth a sprinkle. I just do not see how he makes the weekend.
Missing the cut and at a nice plus money price. As we mentioned, you want to ride with Andy Lang right this moment. Go check him out over at wagertalk.com, wt.buzz/AL. And that's going to wrap it here for the Tuesday edition of Wager Talk Extra. Make sure you're subscribed so you never miss any of the great shows here, especially with baseball season right around the corner. That means First Pitch coming back here on Wager Talk TV. We will see you tomorrow, Wednesday, locked and loaded. We will miss our man Andy Lang, but Nick Borman going to give his Valero Texas Open thoughts, and then also Kevin Dolan going to be previewing a big Saturday boxing tilt, Anthony Joshua versus Jermaine Franklin. That's coming on tomorrow's edition of Wager Talk Extra. So until then, big thanks to tuning in. Big thanks to Andy Lang. Big thanks to Eric doing a terrific job behind the scenes. And we'll see you tomorrow right back here on Wager Talk Extra.